Everything starts with an idea, followed by a desire to make or build or do something great. The need is in our DNA. It rests within our soul. To marshal your skills requires discipline. You approach your dream as a master craftsman would, taking a journey toward refinement. Within you lies an unrelenting voice telling you to make the next thing better than the last. A personal study of ingenuity and artistry. This commitment has demanded a certain amount of sacrifice. But your deliberate effort has produced work that is continually evolving and growing. We make this in your honor, because you choose to meet the ultimate challenge. To challenge yourself to be the best of the best. This belongs to you, the champion.
And hello and welcome everybody. We are live here for the grand finals of the Oceanic Season 3 Championships for League of Legends, live here from PAX Australia. My name is Pastry Time and I'm going to be joined as almost always by Papa Smithy. Papa, how you doing, man?
I'm feeling great. Pastry Time in front of a massive crowd here at PAX Australia. Two teams are going to be playing for the lion's share of $40,000, but more importantly, the path to Cologne, Germany, and potentially the World Finals to play at the Staples Center for the League of Legends Season 3 Championship.
That's right. The winner, of course, not only gets that very, very nice prize pool, but gets to go to Gamescom Germany at Cologne, of course, compete in that wildcard tournament, and of course the winner of that does get into the Season 3 World Finals. And I mean, for a region like Oceania, PAX Australia has been the first ever event of its kind here. Clearly the turnout's been awesome. You guys have been amazing all weekend, but just such a great chance for either of the teams here. And of course, we do have HotSoggyDecimate versus Immunity. Now, Immunity, just what else can we say? An absolutely incredible team, a titan of Australian esports, particularly in League of Legends as well. Been dominating pretty much ever since they've been together, and its core has stuck together since about 2011. That's how far this team goes back. And Papa, who do we have on the other side? Because we've got some veterans, but no organization there.
It's really a case of a big contrast, right? Immunity, a team that have been together a long time. The roster's been fairly settled. They have won all the Australian events so far in the last couple of years. Whereas on the other side, HotSoggyDecimate, they're a team that's been together for what, a month maybe?
I don't even know if it's been a month. They said they got together, I think, last Wednesday before the first qualifier. So that's about 2-3 weeks ago. So no, not very long at all.
Absolutely, and they got together at that point. There is 4 veterans of the Australian scene there who have that competitive experience, and here they are in the final.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to bring both these teams out for you as we kick off our grand final, starting off on the blue side, HotSoggyDecimate.
And on the red side, we will have Team Immunity.
And there you are, 2 teams for our grand final here. It's been a pretty amazing weekend. Actually, we had 4 teams to start off the tournament, of course. Only 2 left now, I guess. But everyone here has really just been amazed by the turnout. I mean, this is the biggest event either of the teams have ever played, and I guess it may be worth mentioning, Immunity, for all their success here in Australia, have never gotten a chance to travel internationally, and you know that as the favourite here for the tournament, they'd really like that opportunity.
That's probably the one statistic that Immunity would be a bit self-conscious about. 2011 was the last big shot to get there. They didn't get there then. There's been some kind of problems scheduling since then. This is their big shot.
And of course, the 2 lineups now out on your screen. On the left there, you can see kicking off on the blue side on our best of 3. We've got Suna there in the top lane, HotSoggyNoodles in jungle, Elevate in mid, I will Decimate on AD carry, and Zephyrus over there on support. And who've got Papa over on the Immunity side?
On Immunity, we have Swiper up the top lane, Elysia in the jungle, Heavens in the mid, Radio's AD carry, and finally Rosie in support.
And really, when we look at these 2 teams, what do we really see? I mean, both AD carriers have played absolutely spectacularly this entire tournament. Immunity, always known for being a Radius-centric team. You know, he definitely puts the carry in carry for their team, but I mean, Decimate's just been playing incredibly. I think he has one of the lowest KDAs in the entire tournament.
Absolutely.
In terms of death, sorry.
In terms of deaths, absolutely. And it's one of those things where we thought maybe it was just the Ezreal that he was proficient at. He had played blue Ezreal basically every game so far, but he pulled out the Vayne and he showed that he was just as strong on the hyper carries as well. So many strings to his bow.
Absolutely. In fact, I believe neither team at this point has actually lost a game in the tournament. We had both semifinals actually go 2-0 yesterday, and I know that, it's funny we mentioned Ezreal has a 100% win rate for HotSoggyDecimate. That's because they haven't lost yet in the tournament, and I don't think that's the same for Immunity here. So, you know, one of the teams is going to have to break surf here and lose, well, at least 2 games if they want to go through. So, very curious to see how these 2 match up against. So there you can see Immunity on the right, there your red side, and HotSoggyDecimate on the left. I mean, what else can we really say about these teams? Everyone, it seems like, has had their moment in the sun.
It's interesting to see the KDA here actually higher on the HotSoggyDecimate side. I think that might be because they've had longer games. They've had a lot of 50-minute games. Even games where they've been in the advantage, they've gone really long. So more opportunity to get those kills and boost those stats.
Yeah, I mean, despite the experience on the Immunity side, we've really harped on about how long they've been together. There are some big veterans in the HotSoggyDecimate scene, and that's really carried them through a lot of these grueling games. In fact, funnily enough, both these teams in their game 2s went to, I believe, 50+ minutes in order to take their series out. But looks like we are getting into Champs Select here, so we'll start things off. HotSoggyDecimate on the left here to start it off, and of course Immunity on the right. So in terms of picks and bans for these teams, what do you think we're going to see banned out here by either side? Because a lot of teams here seem to have really well prepared for this event, and every single time we've gone very quickly through the draft. I
mean, Team Immunity yesterday, they basically ran through their bans almost instantly. They had a plan. You could see the same 3 champions banned in both games. They were very confident. It's kind of hard to say here, but so far we have Zach banned out by HotSoggyDecimate, even with the first pick. And Zed is the ban on Immunity.
Yeah, Zach just a champion. In fact, both these Zed champions here, Zach and Zed, just very, very powerful champions in general. We've seen Zach actually play well for both teams here. It's usually been Swiper on the immunity side playing Zac in the top lane, and from the jungle, Soggy Needles has been playing Zac over there as well. Zed, I mean, Sooner Zed looked so scary in that first game up against Big Gem on Friday all the way back then. Looks like Jason Elise. I mean, some very common picks here just because these are very strong champions that both these teams have shown proficiency with.
Absolutely. I mean, soon as Elise up the top lane was very, very impressive. HotSoggyDecimate has taken it into the jungle as well. It's a champion that Immunity have banned out against multiple teams. It's a champion they don't seem particularly comfortable playing against, so ban it out.
And a bit more of a targeted ban here. The Thresh is actually going to get banned out by HotSoggyDecimate, going to deny that away from Rosie. And I mean, Rosie, we mentioned he's an 80 carry radio, but that dual lane has been doing pretty well for Immunity the entire tournament. I mean, Venom is just such an aggressive player, and even from the support position, seems to make plays for his team.
So the final ban here for Immunity. I mean, Rumble's probably the biggest champion open here. Suna has shown amazing Rumble mechanics during this tournament, and they leave it open. They
ban Annie. That's really interesting. I mean, Elevate did actually play Annie in the tournament, so there is that, but here it goes instead. They're going to pick up Vayne, it looks like here. That's the other champion that both the AD carries on either side have actually played a lot. Apart from Ezreal, Vayne, I think, has been the most played for both Decimate and Radier, and one of the things is that the Vayne-Ezreal matchup is pretty positive for Vayne.
Absolutely. I mean, Vayne is a champion that Radier is known for. It is the hyper carry he's played for. But right over here, he's mulling over a champion who recently received some buffs and is almost inexplicably completely linked to that Radier there. They're considering the Corki, but maybe even the Tryndamere could come out here. One of Swiper's favorite champions.
That's true. I mean, Immunity have a lot of different champions. In fact, both these teams have very deep champion pools. It would be really interesting to see Rady go back to Corki here. I think they are going to go with Jarvan because that is something that Alicia is very comfortable on. We actually saw Jarvan bans in the last game yesterday when they played up against XL5 Eclipse, so wouldn't be too surprised to see that changed up there. I mean, I guess he can't really pick Ezreal, right, because the matchup's not great. He's played a lot of Corki versus Vayne, and he knows both those champions very well. So honestly, I don't think it would surprise me here, and I know it would make us very happy. And I think we are going to get it. There we go. Rady Corki is back.
Absolutely, and Corki actually has a very favorable matchup against both Ezreal and Vayne, two of IWillDecimate's favorite champions. So not a big surprise to see that pick there. Very, very strong against that Vayne matchup. Very hard to juke into the brush or abuse your tumble when you're revealed by Phosphorus Bomb.
Yeah, there's Nass as well over there for them. They do pick up their Rumble, and Ari's going to come in here as well. So Elevate going to continue to pick and play aggressively here, it seems like. But I think Immunity might have the counter prepared. You can see Heavens immediately mouses over Swain here. And I mean, as we said, both these teams have done a lot of preparation. They know their tendencies. They know a lot of the champions they like to draft. I mean, you know Heavens is going to be trying to play against this Ahri as best he can. And Renekton, another big comfort champion here for them as well. Swiper's Renekton has looked devastating in the qualifying rounds.
It's very interesting to see the Ahri picked up on HotSoggyDecimate just because Ahri is a champion that was permanently bound out over on the previous match yesterday against X5 Eclipse. The Chief Swiftless Ahri completely banned out. Not a champion they seem confident playing against, but available here.
Yeah, I mean, Swiftless Ahri, very scary, so they definitely want to move that one out of the way. But Elevate shown proficiency on aggressive mid-champions as well, so no real surprise to see that one picked up. I mean, Annie's actually getting respect banned here by Immunity as well, so they clearly don't want Elevate to have, you know, that kind of playmaking, very aggressive mid-champion it is known for. So he's going to Ahri here instead. Looks like HotSoggyDecimate actually mousing over Udyr potentially. We did see that being looked at on the Immunity side in their first few picks, but I don't think we've seen Udyr for any of the games we had streamed over the entire qualifier.
Yeah, and obviously the recent release of the Spirit Summon Udyr has seen a recent rise in popularity of that Udyr. Still a champion is very kiteable, very hard to get onto targets. I mean, Swain, a very strong champion against Udyr, but in Perfect World, Udyr can really control a team fight. Consistent stuns coming out from that bear stance.
Yeah, it looks like it is going to be Udyr picked up here. Nami as well, going to be the last two picks here. And we've seen a lot of Nami this tournament. Combos very, very well with a lot of the hyper carries that we've seen. A lot of Vayne as well that we have seen out there as Teemo is going to get selected here by Immunity. Although they were doing a bit of posturing yesterday with this as well. I feel like they're just trying to give the crowd what they want.
One of Rosie's favorite champions when he's played other roles, so more than just a placeholder, you'd have to think, but maybe not the lock-in.
I don't know about support Teemo, but you are correct that Rosie, I mean, talk about players with experience. That guy's played pretty much every role at the competitive level here in Australia, and he's definitely known when he played top lane for his Teemo. Don't know if we're going to be seeing it. I mean, he's seen in recent tournaments actually playing stuff. We saw Annie support in the qualifying rounds. We saw Orianna support as well, but Blitzcrank, I think, might be the pick here, and he played an amazing Blitzcrank in the last game.
It's mousing over both Blitzcrank and Zyra and locks in the Zyra here. Blitzcrank would have been the engage. Zyra is the disengage queen.
Yeah, and they've got Renekton here as well to try and get in the mix. And Nasus, of course, a very tanky front line here. Kind of an interesting comp in terms of ranges here for Immunity, because obviously they have two melee bruisers here. We've got Renekton and Nasus. They've got Swain, who's pretty short range. He likes to get as close as possible so everyone's affected by his ultimate. And Corki as well, also a short range champion. So, I mean, Zyra is, again, another champion that Rosie's feels very comfortable on. He's played it a lot. They seem to like Zyra-based lanes, but very aggressive, very short range comp here from Immunity.
I've got to say, though, Zyra is almost a masterstroke as a 5th pick, because if you look over on the HotSoggyDecimate side, Rumble, Udyr, Ahri, and Vayne all do their damage in close proximity. There isn't a lot of range there, barring the Rumble ultimate, the equalizer. Everything else is melee to about 600 range there. Zyra's disengaged, you know, both through her E ability and, of course, that ultimate, really, really strong. I don't just see how they're going to get close to the immunity carries with all that disengage.
Yeah, one of the nice things here as well is we've seen a lot of Nami in this tournament. Nami's ultimate has proved to be an amazing engage and disengage abilities. It's kind of funny that both supports here are very big, very high impact ultimates here, and they can both be used for different purposes. I think in general, because of Stranglethorn's instant cast and the fact that it doesn't have to, you know, move, it's not a wave that moves out, it's a plant that grows. I think if Venom is fast enough, and he probably is given his experience as a player, he can throw out Stranglethorns while Tidal Wave's coming and probably cut off most of the, as you said, very aggressive, very melee-based engage that HotSoggyDecimate have here.
And Nami and Zyra will both have very similar roles in team fights. You're right, they're both disengaged supports. Maybe it might be the support spotlight here, just because of how similar their roles would be, how similar the comps are. Whichever Nami or Zyra does better might have a big impact on these fights.
Yeah, and I think, as always, jungle pressure is always very important in the early game. I mean, Udyr is a fairly aggressive champion. He tapers off a little bit because, as you said, he's kind of kiteable. But if he can get things going and really start snowballing here, then that'll be pretty awesome. And I mean, Soggy Noodles definitely has a lot of Udyr experience. He's been playing for a while.
The Ahri pickup's just so interesting to me, pastry time. Again, a champion immunity don't like to face. Whenever there's an Ahri specialist, I mean, Astrus and Swiffer from X5, both known for their Ahri, very frequently banned out against XL5 Eclipse. Having the Ahri open here is interesting, but Swain is a very strong matchup there in the mid lane.
Yeah, it's a really, really good counter to Ahri. I mean, Ahri, you know, she wants to get in close and try and assassinate you, and Swain, all he really has to do is turn on his ultimate, and he's good to go from there. I mean, you saw Heavens immediately went to Swain once he saw that Ahri picked out as well. So, again, both these teams know each other. They've got very deep champion pools, but he made a very fitting comparison for Elevate yesterday over on the HotSoggyDecimate side to a certain famous NA mid player. I mean, he's not quite Reginald, but he's been playing a lot like him this tournament.
I mean, if you saw his Annie the other day, I mean, shadows of Reginald ever, all the play there, just so much aggression put out. And even if it's Orianna, it's still the same sort of aggression put out. And I'm just interested to see who's more comfortable on their champion, because I haven't seen the Elevate Ahri before. I haven't seen much of the Heavens Swain either. And even though it's a bit of a counter matchup, I mean, if there's a skill gap there, who knows what will happen.
Yeah, it's definitely curious. Again, jungle pressure always going to play a point here. Mid lane is kind of awkward to gank for both these champions as well. It's very short. They've got, I mean, they're melee champions. Nasus' Wither is going to help them out a little bit here, as we are going to jump into the first game, it looks like. But, I mean, Udyr's ganks going to be a little tricky in terms of him getting them off, because he has to walk all the way into a very short lane, and if it flashes up, it's going to be hard news. Swain's actually hard to gank anyway, because when he activates his ultimate, he just kind of doesn't die.
And Swain has two disengages, which will be very strong. Both his Q, the Decrepify, and the W, going to be able to disengage against Udyr, and it's a Ghost Udyr. The thing about Ghost Udyr is he doesn't have that same ganking pressure early. He can't flash into your lane on top of you and bear stance to get that stun off. But in late game team fights, being able to ghost after carries and get multiple stuns can be very powerful. So in terms of summoner spells, it seems like it's set up for the late game, but will that hurt the early to mid game jungle pressure enough? Not sure.
Maybe, and I guess it's kind of an interesting difference between the two junglers in terms of summoner spells they've decided to go for, because we saw Nasus actually, Soggy Noodles plays a lot of Nasus, so there's a nice little blocker pick there as well for immunity, but Alicia almost always has Flash when he plays Nasus, and Soggy Noodles always takes Ghost, so they clearly have very different styles. So I mean, Papa, what advantage do you think you get as a Nasus player having Flash versus Ghost? I guess you kind of already touched on it a bit with Udyr.
I think if you play Nasus, you wish you had, like, you always want Ghost, just because in a late game team fight, that will keep you in range of the carries, that will keep you in the team fight longer. But with the amount of disengage here, the potential of being able to flash, you know, the tidal wave, being able to flash some of that initiation CC could be very powerful. And then, of course, with any jungle invades, having flash, being able to flash over wall, being able to get safe is very important.
Yeah, it really is. It's, yeah, going to be very curious. It almost feels like they picked very similar team comps, which is kind of interesting to me because Immunity, I feel like they have a very strong mid-game comp. I mean, again, Corky's kind of short range. Everything they're doing is very strong in the mid-game, but we've seen HotSoggyDecimate go to late game a lot here in this tournament, and they almost always seem to pull it out. I mean, it was a pretty pick-up team, but they've got a lot of veterans hanging out. They're clearly confident here on LAN. They seem to play almost the best of any team that's come here in terms of their LAN performance. I would be a little afraid if I was Immunity to drag it out to late game here, especially with Decimate's Vayne.
In terms of actual team comps, though, pretty even in terms of late game, just because Renekton kind of falls off late game. But the same could be said about Ahri. So in the Renekton Rumble matchup, you'd probably prefer Rumble late game. In the Ahri versus Swain matchup, I mean, Swain gets to 6 items. He is super, super scary if he can balance tankability and damage. So a very balanced team comp overall. I mean, Corky versus Vayne, we all know that's the Vayne, though.
Yeah, and that is probably going to be the biggest difference here. I mean, HSD have lent so much. HotSoggyDecimate have lent so much into their carry player Decimate, and every time he seemed to pull through for them. So we'll see if they can get here. But Immunity, known for early game aggression, known for really just being an incredible team with a lot of talented players across all the lanes. I'd be very curious to see if HotSoggyDecimate can survive the early onslaught. They might be okay here, but it really is, I mean, an underdog story almost. Despite the veterans that are on HSD, Immunity are just such a well-established team, so well-known, and everybody knows that if you make it to a final of a big tournament here in Australia, you're probably going to have to play Immunity.
Now, so far this tournament, item builds from level 1 have been pretty standard. If we look over to Udyr here, he started Doran's Blade and that Rejuvenation Biscuit there. So I guess he's gone utility, but also might be even going a Tiger Udyr, which does, of course, scale on that attack damage.
Yeah, looks like shenanigans are getting set up here. They're going to spot them here. Immunity hanging out in the brush. There goes the move. Elevated trouble. The damage coming through there, and Ahri's going to have to flash away there. Soggy Noodles, though, gets first blooded by Corky. Sooner now in trouble as well as he gets chased down. And the last person you want to give first blood to is Radio.
And a 1-for-0 trade that's actually pretty crazy. There wasn't more kills there. Ahri able to save on low health. Flashes down for Nasus, which isn't a big deal, but all the other laner flashes up for Immunity.
A lot of summoner spells burnt here as well. Radio actually has both of his, so the extra gold he got plus that is going to help him out here. You see he's returning to lane now with some boots, so that's going to help him out in terms of, you know, just dodging against Vayne. Vayne, of course, a highly mobile AD, so he'll be happy to have a little bit of extra move speed there. And if Corky can get ahead early in this lane, and I guess with the first blood he already has, Vayne's going to have a little bit of a tough time. And part of the problem with Nami Vayne, it's a great late game lane, a lot like a lot of old Janna hypercarry based lanes, but the problem is it's potentially very, very squishy early on.
Absolutely, there's going to be huge pressure coming out of Zyra and Corky here. It's an advantageous matchup for Corky Zyra. I think they're going to have to try and escape lane with maybe a 20 to 30 CS disadvantage, but just try not to die in lane. HotSoggyDecimate.
And looks like not too many shenanigans are happening here early. Swain, of course, can afford to actually be quite aggressive early on. He does not have a point in Torment yet, but all his damage gets amplified, including his auto attacks when that E is on you. So Swain, surprisingly, kind of like Orianna, I guess, when that debuff's on you, he's actually very, very scary in auto attack traits.
Both junglers rotate into their red buffs. I mean, Elysia will have the ganking advantage for the top lane here. No wards down right now, but Nasus is not really known for his level 3 gank power.
No, looks like down the bottom lane here, just some trades back and forth. You can see very aggressive positioning here from Immunity. They clearly want to take advantage of their early lead and try and zone them out. And you can see just both of them standing very, very far forward. I mean, part of the issue is that if Zyra ever catches you with a grasping roots, then Corky can just walk in, auto attack you, phosphorus bomb, auto attack. And that was Radiant's bread and butter for the longest time. He would just walk into lane as Corky, phosphorus bomb you, auto attack you down, and that was a trade you were never winning. You see down the bottom, Decimate already struggling here at less than half health.
It's just such an instant damage trade pace time. Even though they both have the same auto attack range, if you get that auto and you're getting the phosphorus bomb in, it's a massive burst of damage.
Yeah, you can see it looks like something is being set up there, but Nasus going to back away from that one this time around. Up in the top line here, Udyr's actually going to look for it. He finds the stun sooner though. Needs to find the harpoon, but he doesn't have it. The damage though, massive from that Udyr. And that skin looks really sweet, Papa. That's actually the first time we've ever seen it.
And the Tiger stance doing already at level 1 here. Already hitting for 132 damage. So with the red buff tick, he just needed a bit of follow-up damage from the Rumble. Couldn't quite get it there.
Yeah, it's almost unfortunate for Soon that he wasn't level 3 earlier, because Electro Harpoon would have been there. It would have been damage with a Flame Spitter, probably level 2 as well. I guess he has Scrap Shield instead, because otherwise I'm sure he would have harpooned there. But a nice attempt there, very aggressive there from Udyr, and that's exactly what Soggy Noodles needs to be doing in order to get this out. And looks like we do have a pause soon.
Bit of an awkward pause there as the skill shot was coming out from Swain, but I imagine just some small issues to look at.
Yep, no worries. Looks like we'll be back to the game early on. So just what we've seen already, it's 4 minutes in, so not too far. I'm worried for bottom lane here for HotSoggyDecimate because you never ever want to give Raider an advantage in lane. It's hard enough when he's just CSing against you. He's so consistent, he last hits so well, but an extra 400 gold to start things off. You can see how aggressive, actually right now on your screen, I guess it's not on your screen, but we can see, if you could see in the pause, that the positioning has been really aggressive down the bottom lane for immunity.
It's just one of those lanes that's really punishing for Vayne. Vayne struggles in a Caitlyn lane because just of sheer attack range. But in a Corki lane, she just can't trade like Corki can in the early levels. And as I said before, the reveal on Phosphorus Bomb just makes it impossible for her to really, you know, abuse her ability to tumble and really reposition a lot. So she's going to get punished in the early game. She's going to get punished in the mid game, probably by a CS deficit. Hopefully not any kills if you're a HotSoggyDecimate fan. But in the late game, we all know what a hypercarry Vayne can turn into. They just need to try and baby her through lane a bit here, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, the problem with Nami as well is that she does have a heal, but it's best using aggressive trades. It's not a very good sustaining thing. I mean, Sona's heal is, I know it's been changed a lot and nerfed time and time again, but it does give you some sustain. You know, it's not Soraka level, thankfully. That's a little silly, but over time you can get your health back as Sona if you're able to have enough mana and you stay in lane long enough. Nami doesn't really have the luxury of doing that. And when we talk about bottom lanes being late game oriented, it's the fact that you don't really lane that well. And Zyra's okay in the early game. I think she's probably best in the mid game. But if you ever get caught, as I said, by that E, you're just going to take a silly, silly amount of damage. And Zyra plants as well also do tons here. And Vayne, she can tumble. She's probably not going to be able to tumble out of the melee plant range, which will slow her. And she'll just take auto attack after auto attack. I mean, it's often when you see Vayne-based lanes, they're probably going to lane swap. And HotSoggyDecimate instead have decided to actually just lane it straight up 2v2. And unfortunately, due to that level 1, looks like they're paying for it a little bit here to get back into the game.
So Udia's Ghost now coming back out of base. Looks like we're not going to see any Spirit Stone items coming out from Udia. A couple of Doran's Blades maybe into, I imagine, a tankier kind of build.
Yeah, I actually really like the way Soggy Noodles is playing it as well. He knows he needs to be aggressive early on for his team. He knows he needs to have pressure. So, I mean, a Doran's Blade, we see it every now and then. I know a lot of Lee Sin players have been switching to that Doran's and just kind of skipping the Spirit Stone. Because, I mean, you don't really need it. Udo, I guess, kind of likes the mana regen. It's helpful, but a champion like Lee Sin is energy-based. Unfortunately, Madrid's Razor is not all that popular right now. So I guess junglers have just been going more aggressive and saying, you know what, I can do this with a Doran's Blade.
And absolutely, it's one of those things where, like, if it was a Phoenix Udia, we'd definitely be seeing the Spirit Stone, you know, because you need the mana regen. You're more about clearing the jungle than single target damage. Tiger Udia scales so well with AD that you always want to pick up as much early AD as possible. Easiest to do that with the Doran's Blade, gives you those effective stats. You might need a few lifesteal quints just to make the jungle a bit safer, but with Tiger Stance and the on-hit healing, Udia can navigate the jungle just fine with that Doran's Blade.
Yeah, and you saw in the early gank that he attempted there that just so much damage came out from that Tiger Stance, and that was just level 1 Tiger, so it's pretty intense here. Again, both teams kind of jostling for position. I don't know, I don't want to harp on the level 1 too much, but I think it is going to be an issue, but we'll see what happens here. I mean, very explosive mid lane potentially if Elevate can get something going. If Udi ends up anywhere, he's probably going to end up getting a kill because of how aggressive he's playing with both his build, and just generally he has to be aggressive here. So I'm pretty curious to see. I think a lot of this game, though, is going to ride on the early game. We kind of talked about how much in common these two comps had, and I think if either team gets 2 ahead early, then it's just going to be lights out come mid game.
And I think in bot lane, there's a balance on the immunity side. You have Corki, fantastically strong early game. Late game falls away a little bit. Still a ranged AD carry. Still has the same access to, you know, the Holy Trinity items, the Bloodthirsters, the Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, Last Whisper, but not quite the late game carry that Vayne is. However, Nami is actually a bit of a late game support as well. So it's a late game AD carry with a late game support against an early game bully. And that's kind of my worry for the HotSoggyDecimate side, is that without jungle pressure, they don't have a lot of tools to beat the Zyra Corki lane. They kind of have to struggle. I mean, just at this 4-minute mark, a 12 CS advantage, and I think that's only going to grow for Radiant here.
Yeah, I mean, I likened it to Janna earlier. I mean, a lot of Janna lanes, you played a hyper carry like Kog'Maw, who was popular, you know, back in the day, and you played Janna because she was so good at protecting your hyper carry. You know, Vayne definitely a hyper carry, scales very, very well. And Nami has a lot of those things that make Janna attractive. She's really good at disengaging. She can peel very well for your team. I mean, you can kind of, you know, match up the abilities, and they're obviously very different, but they do similar things. And Nami, as we already mentioned, definitely a late game support. And as you said, Corki known for his early game aggression. I mean, he scales a little bit better because of true damage off Hextech shrapnel shells, but other than that, it's he's a little worse off than Vayne, obviously. Silver Bolts is a pretty nice skill. And looks like we actually are going to have a remake of this game, unfortunately, so we'll have to get back into it. Just getting a couple details for you now so we know what's going on. And yeah, we should be back here. I'm not exactly sure. I guess they have to remake the whole game, which is going to be a little awkward for the early game. Did you get any words there from the admins about what's going on, Papa?
It's definitely going to be a remake, I guess. I mean, obviously you can't recreate the circumstances that have happened in this game. And it must have been a significant issue for them to restart at the 4-minute mark with a first blood already down. So hopefully they get that sorted and we get this series, after a bit of a mulligan, a bit of a false start, back in here.
Yeah, I mean, I think still a lot of the same things apply here. Both teams are going to want to look to get ahead early. I think Immunity, the onus is a little more on them to be aggressive early on, but I mean, that's really the way they like to play. During the qualifiers, they basically just, all they did was win lane and then go from there. So they're definitely going to be trying to do a lot of that again. I guess I'm curious to see if either team is going to bring any sort of cheese. We did see a very awesome but slightly gimmicky strat for Immunity in yesterday's game too, if you caught that there. And I think both teams probably have some different strategies prepared. You know, we kind of, I don't want to say, you know, made fun of or kind of criticized them for, but you know, HotSoggyDecimate seemed to play one way in the qualifiers. You know, they were very careful, very calm, very methodical. They like their team fight. They've told us that. They feel very confident in late game situations, and they definitely dragged out games to a point where they can go on. Immunity, all they seem to do was just, you know, be aggressive early on, pick fairly good early mid-game champions, and then just snowball their lanes and go from there. I think both teams are playing very standard for their styles to kick off game one, but they're both capable of changing it up and really making a difference as well.
Absolutely, and spending some time with the HotSoggyDecimate guys, they kind of say in a lot of cases, they're a bit worried about that laning phase. They're not that confident in the laning phase, but they know that they have the late game team fight advantage. They're very comfortable there. So they're happy to extend the game that far. It's a risk though. I mean, it's one of those things where there's always that potential for a snowball where it gets too far and then the late game never comes around.
Yeah, and I think both these teams are very strong at different stages of the game, but I think Immunity's best trait is probably their early game. I mean, we actually looked at some stats, and funnily enough, Immunity's kill involvement was not very high because they're all just busy winning their own lane, apparently. So HotSoggyDecimate, of course, very different. They've had a lot of late game situations, even in the round of 8 qualifier, actually, as well. They were playing long games to get through here as well. In fact, they won a very drawn-out 2-0 series to actually qualify for the first place here against Daisy Parade, a team that did very well coming through the qualifiers. So I think both these teams kind of know where they want to be going, and you know, they're going to be playing their game as best they can. And
yeah, the stat sheet kind of had an interesting stat when it comes to I Will Decimate. We've been noting the fact that he's been focusing on that Ezreal play. He had the highest average CS in the game of 350 CS a game. You don't get 350 CS in a respectable length game. I mean, we always talk about the potential of that 10 CS a minute for mid lane, because they have access to those extra camps. But when it comes for an AD carry, that empty lane farm suggests to me, I mean, their average game that was up there, I believe, in the 40-minute mark almost. So very long games.
Yeah, really high. I mean, as we said, Radiant known for his mechanics, but Decimate has been really showing some incredible CS. I mean, he almost had 100 CS every 10 minutes in the very long game 2 they played on Friday. So he's really just been working, and he's always able to find farm. And when you're playing hyper carries like Vayne, you know, that's exactly what you need to be able to do.
I mean, Radius KDA coming into yesterday, so before yesterday's game, in the last 2 rounds, the round of 16 and the round of 8, 24 kills, 4 deaths, and 33 assists. He doesn't die a lot, and he's the superstar of the team, so he shows it and leads from the front.
Yeah, they really do. And as we said, Immunity's strong in all their lanes. Definitely going to be looking to be aggressive here early on and try and take it up. But we'll have to see. I mean, you know, I think we can say a lot about, you know, how Immunity get ahead, and they usually are favorite to win games where they're very far ahead early on. But I don't think after yesterday, with the amazing series between X5 and Immunity, and just the way HotSoggyDecimate have played, even a team as experienced as Immunity, who've got great chemistry between their team members, who clearly have good team fight, I don't think we can say that HotSoggyDecimate are out of any game that goes to late game.
And you have to wonder how this restart's going to affect things. You know, we're restarting the game here. Obviously, it's not going to be that first blood situation, that huge team fight we saw. How's that going to affect the psyches there? I mean, clearly the aggressive playstyle of HotSoggyDecimate was punished by Immunity with that brush cam. Are we going to see something similar here? Would it be a case of trying something different? Would it be trying the same thing, hoping the enemy wouldn't expect the same thing twice? I don't know.
Yeah, I almost feel like, I mean, both teams are going to have to mix it up. That's kind of the unfortunate thing here, is that once you've shown your hand in a game, you probably don't want to do the same thing again, because it's unlikely that they're going to fall for it a second time. I mean, unless you think that, you know, unless you get some sort of crazy double bluff situation, then it's likely that both teams are going to do something different. I think HotSoggyDecimate are probably happy with the fact that it's a remake. I mean, it's unfortunate, of course, because, you know, we'd like to get some League of Legends. But it feels like HotSoggyDecimate are like, okay, we got carried away there. We lost someone early on. That was not particularly exciting for us. They can reset a little bit, maybe just kind of think about it again. I have a feeling that they're going to play a little more defensively, but I think Immunity might try something even crazier. I mean, it's going to probably go one way or the other, right? They're either going to play super passive or super aggressive. And I think before, when it was a little bit more balanced, both teams were maybe looking to get involved. I think now, after the reset, we're going to see a more polarized level one way or the other.
It's been confirmed, at least in the chat over here, that it will be the same picks and bans. We won't see a new draft, so sticking with the same picks and bans for this game.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that makes total sense. I mean, unfortunately, for whatever reason, the game did have to be remade, but it just gets to a point sometimes. I mean, at that point in the game, you're never ever going to reset a draft. It just doesn't make any sense. So, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of good for both teams, right? Especially for the jungler on HotSoggyDecimate side, Soggy Noodles. He does want to be aggressive, as we noted. He's playing Udyr. He's playing an aggressive champion. He's shown that he wants to go for the Tiger Stance build, so definitely more 1v1 potential, more aggression, potentially duelist potential in the jungle as well, if he wants to do a little bit of counter juggling. But he's going to just have to be aggressive. And he had a shot up the top lane early on, almost had the gank actually go off there. So I think Swiper might even realize that, okay, maybe in this matchup I have to be a little more careful. But, I mean, the first blood Immunity, we're very happy to have it on Radiant to start things off. They're certainly going to be hoping that happens again, but I think even then their bottom lane's going to play very aggressively.
There's a lot of little psychological things there in League of Legends. It's one of those things where it doesn't really make sense to try the same thing in terms of a level 1 twice, but it kind of really does, because no one should expect that, because it seems silly on one level. And it's one of those things where there's a lot of different things that can happen in this game. I imagine we're still going to see the Doran's Blade start, which was kind of the one curious item decision, so maybe Immunity will be able to anticipate that, but otherwise, who knows what game we're going to get here, Pastry Time?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned psychology. At this point, when you have a remake in a game situation like this, just the amount of mind games that can go on is just incredible. I mean, there's so many different things you can do at level 1. And, one happened, it's probably not going to happen again in the next game, but, if you think that your invade almost worked the first time, maybe you'll try it again. And if the enemy doesn't think that, they may just kind of wonder and be like, oh, okay, whatever. And then you'll get invaded and everything goes wrong all of a sudden. I don't know, it's really hard to say. I guess we're going to have to wait to find out. But we should be good to go pretty soon here. We should be loading into the next game here.
And the other adaptation, same items required. So obviously it was a very severe tech issue to stop the game 4 minutes in. Usually if there's a more simple issue, you just restart it right at the start before a kill or something. In this case, we're restarting the game, same picks, same bans, same items.
Yep, so everyone's going to have to buy the same starting items. Obviously the draft is going to be the same here as well. And, we'll have almost the same thing that happened, I guess. As we said, the invade's probably going to change here between the two teams, but it'll be very, very similar here. And I don't know. I think the first game, especially in a best-of-3 series, game 1 is always a big factor in determining momentum going into a series. You win the first game, you feel good, you're pumped up, you're ready to go, the adrenaline's going. You'll probably, I don't know, maybe you'll play even more confidently, more aggressively in game 1, or you'll just feel you're able to close out situations or make plays that you normally wouldn't. And that can often snowball to a quick 2-0. I mean, I think game 1 is usually the closest of most of the games between two teams, and game 2, if it's going to be one-sided, is going to be the most one-sided game in the best-of-3.
I think with the blue side advantage, as an underdog with less information about them, HotSoggyDecimate really want to pick up this first game. Picking up the first game opens up 2 chances at winning this tournament for HotSoggyDecimate, whereas if Immunity pick up the first game, you're playing against a team well-respected, well-regarded, almost universally thought of as the strongest team in League of Legends in Australia. The pressure gets to you if you lose that first game. If you can pick up the first game, anything's possible. Yeah,
and it's actually funny as you kind of look here at the two teams. You can see them there again on your screen, HotSoggyDecimate versus Team Immunity. There are a lot of similarities between these two teams. I mean, the AD carries play in a very similar way. They both like late game carries. They have a very similar champion pool. I mean, their top 2 champions are the same. They're Ezreal, Vayne, right? Their supports even like to play the same way. Both Zephyrus and Rosie play very, very aggressively in lane. They like to use their flashes early on. We saw a lot of early oracles coming up from Zephyrus. And they really like to kind of approach the game the same way and really make something of the support position. Support's always that role where it doesn't feel all that fun to them. It's like, well, I'm just letting here my AD carry say yes thing. But both these guys like to make plays, like to have a big impact on the game for their team. And I mean, we'll have to see both bottom lanes here. I think Decimate's going to be comfortable in his hyper carry position, so he has a little more leeway because as long as he doesn't fall too far behind, then it's not too bad. But yeah, just very aggressive between these two. I think actually for me, the biggest difference might be between the top lanes here, because Swiper has just shown very solid, very consistent, very smart play, and Soon has just been all-out aggression all the time.
Absolutely. I mean, Swiper we've been seeing mostly on that Jace, mostly on the wave clear champions like Jace and Zac, who just try and clear waves, and set up for late game. He hasn't really been going for those early game engages. In early rounds, we have seen that aggressive Zed from him, but that's pretty much the same. You start going aggressive once you get that Blade the Ruin King, once you have your items set up. Sooner, on the other hand, especially with that Rumble, so much aggression so early, this is a real terror in the enemy side.
Yeah, and this is actually a really good thing there on your screen. I know a lot of you may not have been able to see the qualifiers. They were, of course, casted by us online and saw some great matches. But this is actually the top 8 bracket, so we'll see how these teams got here. You can see Daisy Parade versus Fig Jam there. Fig Jam won that one there. Sorry, that was the one who took out Daisy Parade. Looks like HotSoggyDecimate took out Avant-Garde Fear. Both those teams, the Avant guys and the Daisy Parade guys, looked really, really good, beating a lot of good teams, really impressive. So the fact that Fig Jam and HotSoggyDecimate were the 2, I guess, unknown, unsponsored teams to come through really shows a lot about how well they've played. Immunity, on the other hand, took a very solid series there against Wizards Insect. And then, of course, the great 2-0 that we saw from them yesterday in, I think, a much closer than the scoreline suggests series between X5 Eclipse and Team Immunity.
It was a bit of a statement for Immunity to, win that series 2-0 against perhaps the second fancy team, the second biggest sponsored team in Australia. The second game especially was a nail-biter. At 15 minutes, it felt like this was going to be a 20-minute game, almost 90%, but a massive turnaround, a pentakill to Swiffer really changed the momentum in that one. Still, Team Immunity proved too strong. They might do that again today, but HotSoggyDecimate, I know they have some tricks up their sleeves.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a great underdog story for HotSoggyDecimate. As they said, they formed very early on, just before the qualifiers, about a few days before, I think they told us. They've got some well-known players, but obviously they're an unsponsored team. They're just kind of a group of friends that played a lot together, that knew each other from different teams. I mean, we kind of went through the team history a little bit about them, but they've played on about 5 or 6 well-known Australian organizations between the 5 of them. They've got some fresh blood in there as well, and they've looked really, really strong and very consistent throughout the entire tournament. So, I mean, getting to go to the Gamescom Germany is one thing. The money is one thing, but beating Immunity to do it would just feel amazing for these guys, and they really, really want to win here.
And the greatest irony is it's easy to pitch HotSoggyDecimate as kind of a band of brothers, of veterans that have come together, who haven't necessarily played together before and have formed a really strong team. But perhaps their strongest link this tournament has been their top laner, Suna, who's new to the competitive scene. Whether it was on Rumble, Zed, or Elise, just showing fantastic mechanics, assassinating and doing really, really strong work. So even though he's new, he's clearly not overawed by the competitive scene.
Yeah, and there's a shot of the crowd out there. It's pretty massive in here in PAX Australia, guys. Give the camera a wave.
People being very patient here as we just work our way through technical issues. Hopefully only 1 or 2 minutes away from the game, but all we can do is wait on the admins go. Yep,
should be to go pretty soon here. But I hope you guys are enjoying some League of Legends. Of course, it's been a pretty fantastic weekend, actually. I'm sure you guys out there will agree, but I don't know, Papa, what's been your favorite thing about PAX Australia so far this weekend? Because, we've been here, we're actually here on Thursday, and obviously now it's Sunday. PAX has to end. The tournament, unfortunately, has to end as well. One team's going to get to go to Gamescom. What are you going to take away?
See, I wasn't able to get out to the rest of PAX and really investigate the booths, but meeting players, awesome. But
yeah.
Finally, pastry time. We're into the game.
And you can hear the crowd there clearly excited. We are going to get a remake here of Game 1. Immunity there up on the right, the red-hand side, and over on the left there, the blue side is HotSoggyDecimate here. It is the Oceanic Season 3 Championships here for League of Legends. Guys, if you're enjoying League of Legends, if you want to see some great matches, make some noise. All right, so we're going to start things off again here. We'll see if the two teams want to go about the same way. We'll have to see here. A little bit of deja vu, Papa Smithy?
It's feeling like it, pastry time.
It may just be. I mean, I don't think they were told to do the same invade again. That would be that'd be an interesting quirk of the rules, but hey. I guess we're going to see what happens here. Looks like Immunity, they're going to make the first move, but they're going to spot each other again. Bad news coming out there. HotSoggy taking quite a bit of damage. He comes through and does get first blooded. And there is going to be the kill out there for Immunity.
Are we sure that they didn't have to give the first blood away again?
They may have had to, in fact.
I don't think so, pastry time. I think they tried it a second time. It's not working for them.
Yeah, I mean, again, we said there's a lot of mind games here to start things off. It's always curious to see how everything matches up when you have to have a remake of a game, which is very, very rare that you have a full remake, especially after First Blood. But looks like Swiper this time is going to start with the advantage. Everyone else gets a bit of assist gold in there as well. And we start off almost the same way here as Immunity are going to be happy with a nice bit of early gold.
And a massive early buy here at pastry time for that Renekton. He had gone for the very safe rejuvenation build, potions, and ward start. Sold a few parts, has the Doran's Blade now.
Yeah, and now I guess against the Rumble, Renekton would probably feel a little outclassed, especially in the early levels, but it's going to be different here, and now he's going to feel very, very aggressive here against this Rumble. And looks like we're going to mix things up a little bit here in the jungle as well, as we're going to see bottom to top for both junglers here, instead of the opposite we saw from Udyr in game 1.
And that's an interesting adaptation based on time. It does open you up to being that for that level 3 counter gank up top. Top lane's always that focus when the junglers hit 3, because sometimes the lanes are still level 1, and so much more pressure when you have potentially 3 of your abilities available there as a jungler.
Yeah, and looks like down the bottom lane, we only saw it briefly, but Decimate feels a little bit more comfortable now. You can see not quite as aggressive here. Immunity obviously going to try and take the lead here. Good Aqua Prison, actually. A little bit of damage going to come out. One auto attack there onto Radier as they trade back and forth, but a nice grasping roots there from Rosie is actually going to keep most of that from coming out there and kind of trade fairly evenly up there. Top lane looks like Renekton going to hit level 2 very early. We used to see back when Red Pot was a massive thing, Renekton loved to level 2 all in. And of course, Swiper would have the option here with that Doran's Blade to do a lot of damage early on.
But still, with that extra ult, as the Aqua Prison
That's very bad news there for Rosie. Get Dem into the wall. Decimate going to go through. That could be bad news for Zyra. But the damage comes through there. Exhaust actually used on Corki. And I don't know if that was just a little bit mismanaged or what, but looks like mid lane now we could have trouble. The W will miss in there for Swain. Alicia coming through as well. Going to slow him down on Elevate's forced to flash out there. Great early pressure there from Immunity's jungler.
And it looked like we were going to see first blood down the bottom lane, but all of Vayne's damage is in very short range. It's all auto attack based, and she's just afraid of the return Corki double kill if she overextended for first blood. Safe play was to back off.
It was. I mean, I think Zephyrus going to feel a little unfortunate. He had to burn his exhaust there because clearly the plan was to go in and kill that Zyra and try and exhaust off the Corki damage, but was not to be there, as we do see now a little bit of setup happening. More aggression going to continue to come out. The flash already gone there. Flash Wither coming out. Damage to it there as well. A great charm in from Elevate. Now HotSoggyDecimate going to try and make it happen, but first blood gets there to heavens.
Second blood.
Oh, second blood. Excuse me.
But very smart wraparound gank there from Nasus. Notice the blow in the flash. No level 6 available on Ari. Immunity.
And I guess what you were talking about earlier in the draft, Papa, that having flash on Nasus really just lets you do a lot of things with ganking that you normally don't really get on a jungle like Nasus. I mean, both Udyr and Nasus fairly similar in how they operate. Both aren't great gankers unless people are extended, but if you have flash, you have the option to flash CC, and even though it's not a starter mine to be the best ganking CC, sometimes it's enough here. As down the bottom, Zephyrus going to land a nice little Aqua Prison and just trade back and forth here. But Zyra, if there's one thing she does as support, especially early on, it's do a lot of damage.
And you can just see how passively Decimate's playing here. Even when those Aqua Prisons are hitting on priority targets, just very nervous to get in and cancel auto attack, get closer to Radier, just for the potential for that burst damage. And you can see, playing on the back foot, this whole laning phase will be Vayne.
Yeah, I mean, Decimate, he kind of knows the matchup here. He knows it's not great. There's a lot of damage from both Corki and Zyra. One E means he's almost dead. He's going to get hit again. Radier going to go through, maybe going to look for the flash, but just a massive chunk for Phosphorus Bomb. And auto in there as well, just doing so much damage here. I mean, Corki, that true damage he gets on his passive, that Phosphorus Bomb as well. It's really, really bad news. And unfortunately, Decimate unable to tumble a lot of these grasping roots. To his credit, he will have Cleanse here, which will definitely help him if he gets in too big of a problem. But looks like Swiper going to go into the top line. Noodles, though, coming through in the top as well. Sooner actually overheats there, and there's the flash up from Renekton. And unfortunately there for Rumble, no more spells. They're silenced during that overheat. And Noodles not able to get the pressure he really wants here in the early game.
And of all the spells to overheat on when you're looking to play offensively, it's that Scrap Shield that's really, really the costly one. He wasn't able to get any damage, and that couldn't contribute to the game.
No, yeah. Unfortunately, neither of those. That one doesn't do damage. It's the only one of the 4 spells that doesn't. So he's just going to have to kind of walk backwards and realize that, hey, this gank unfortunately is going to go down, Decimate down the bottom and taking a lot of damage. And Zephyrus, he's going to try and heal him up as best he can with Ebb and Flow, but it's just not enough. And I think probably one of the best things, as you mentioned already, Phosphorus Bomb giving that vision makes it hard to juke into the brush down the bottom lane. But even then, you can just see Decimate standing in the tower under it. If he ever moves out for a CS while that's on him, he's just going to get auto attacked again, even though Phosphorus Bomb is on cooldown. So it kind of goes from bad to worse here up against Corki. And Zyra Corki, a surprisingly aggressive lane.
And that Ebb and Flow here, which is going to be being used to sustain Vayne as she takes another burst of damage, it's not really a sustain heal. It's more of a combat heal. We focus on the fact that when it bounces, hits 2 enemies or hits 2 allies, that's when it's mana efficient. Without a Fairy Charm here, with just mana regen potentially from Runes and Masteries, not efficient as a sustain spell.
No. And speaking of sustain in the mid lane, we have Swain actually with a Crystalline Flask. Didn't notice that one starting out from Heavens, but I do like what Elevate's done here. Something, we called him an aggressive player. This is a very old aggressive build, it seems like, although Doran's Ring has been buffed again, so getting a lot more play, but double Doran's probably going to go into Rabadon's here.
It's just a very strong build for early game stats. It's the sort of thing you expect from a Twisted Fate just because his level 6 is a massive power jump. It's the same for Ahri. In most matchups, she will have massive assassination potential at 6. Why not supplement that with Doran's?
Yeah, and down the bottom, Decimate actually forced to go back here, it looks like. I mean, he's been healed up. He's pretty low here in this one. I think he wants to look for the recall. But, I mean, Zephyrus is out of mana. They're going to try and make something happen here, though. Looks like mid lane actually could be problems for Heavens. I think he might be getting all in to elevate low as well. But Spirit Rush not used there for Ahri. Didn't quite go all in, just aggressively traded. Never mind. Did use the ultimate there to set a charge left and ticks away. Yeah,
the camera didn't catch it. A very strong trade there. After being hit by the Never Move, Ahri felt pressured to use her ultimate. They went for a trade of damage. No one fell down there.
Yeah, looks like Vayne actually does go back. I think, yeah, looks like bottom lane going to have both recalls coming out. In fact, Raider here could go in aggressively. The Aqua Prison just going to miss in there. And unfortunately, both recalls cancelled there. I mean, he did have flash and barrier up, so that potentially could have been a 1v2 tower dive there for Corki. Probably would have worked. You can see Immunity being so irritating here as Nami just tries to heal up Vayne as best as she can. I mean, slowly but surely it'll happen, but both of them are very, very low in mana. And as you noted, Nami can't do that forever.
Up top, we see Renekton going aggressive on Rumble here. I mean, Rumble's gone for the Seeker's Arm Guard start. It's very useful in damage trades in the top lane, but doesn't help him in team fights. You usually see Rumbles, even in a 1v2 lane, they just try and rush down that Haunting guys and the Sorcerer's Shoes for that, team fight, for the team fight magic penetration, for the equalizer damage. Instead, it's built for laning here. Won't have the same pressure if they look for a 10 to 15 minute dragon.
No, but I think given the fact that Renekton got the first blood there,
probably
did have an early
probably a fair adaptation.
Yeah, and Swiper actually not going super aggressive here, just had the Dorans for a bit of early laning dominance. You can see it's afforded him a small CS lead here in the top lane, but, kind of going straight, standard, very tanky. I mean, Renekton does a good amount of damage from his ultimate AoE, does a good amount of spell damage anyway, so doesn't need to prioritize damage too much. I guess as a luxury purchase, he could get something like a Last Whisper or maybe a Black Cleaver, but just going for Giant Spell here, very safe, very standard. He wants to be, a very tanky bruiser for his team.
CS values tell us a tale here, as we see in the top lane 8 CS advantage for Renekton, in the mid lane 21 CS advantage for Swain there, probably partially because of the first blood, but down bottom lane is the real story. A 30 CS advantage at 9 minutes is a monstrous lead for Radiant.
Yeah, and if you're in a 2v2 lane against a Vayne, that's exactly the lead you need to have. You need to be punishing the Vayne as best you can, and Radiant's got to be very, very happy with how this is going here. It looks like something's going to get started up here. At least you're going to look to clean up that one, and down the bottom lane. I mean, we can see it happening. Unfortunately, HotSoggyDecimate guys can't, and I think they're just going to have to let it go.
It just doesn't feel like the jungle pressure's been able to be put down on the bottom lane as we see Dragon picked up by Immunity. I mean, Soggy Noodles needs to make something happen, but so hard is Udyr to gain this lane.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to try now down the bottom lane. Raid is going to evacuate out of the way. They may go for Rosie here, and they are, I think, going to go into the Zara. There's the stun coming out. Decimate condemns that tidal wave as well. Exploded there by HotSoggy Noodles, but Raid is looking to make it happen. He wants to go in there. Decimate's still running around. He's going to try and kite this off here, but a good missile there. Picks that one up. Now Barrier gets activated. They turn it around, but Soggy Noodles going to pick up yet another kill here. And now Alicia, who came down to help out, not quite there in time. Not going to be able to make it happen. Now Stuner in the top lane throws out the equalizer. A little misplaced there, I think. I think he wanted to try and cut off the retreat there from Renekton, kind of put it in a straight line instead of across the lane there. But still, I mean, you mentioned the HotSoggy Noodles needed to make some jungle pressure happen. In fact, Stuner in the top lane doesn't have another harpoon there. In fact, Swiper's very low. He's got to be careful. Slices out of the way there. Going to go recall back under his turret.
And action in all lanes, based time. In mid lane, Ahri forced to use her ultimate fairly defensively here. We're starting to see that counter matchup come out here as Swain trying to control the lane and play aggressively.
Yeah, certainly much like Annie, Ahri's level 6 is absolutely devastating, and that's usually where you try and get your first kill, or you roam and get a kill, and you kind of attempt to snowball from there. We've seen DFG on a lot of Ahris when they're snowballing, and it's really, really hard to actually get away from that, which is part of the reason Ahri's so good. One of the reasons I know HotSoggyDecimate wanted to pick up Ahri was to try and assassinate Radiant. Ahri's really, really good with the DFG at actually killing enemy carries, because you can Spirit Rush in with the first tick, explode all the damage on them by throwing DFG and all your abilities out, especially if you hit a charm, it's really hard for them to get away. And then you can use the last 2 ticks of your ultimate to get out, and it's really, really good. I mean, most carries, even Corki, who's got a Valkyrie and might have his flash in there as well, has a lot of trouble getting away from an Ahri who's winning. Unfortunately here, Heavens and Swain is being really, really difficult for Elevate to move out of the lane, and it looks like HotSoggy Noodles is going to try and make a difference here. He's going to rush through, but Heavens is going to walk around there, looks for the W, finds the Elevate coming in, the charming there as well. I think Heavens actually misflashed there as he went forward, but Alicia is coming through as well, just regenerating regenerating now with that ultimate arrow. Grabbing a spot, ticks out, and now Elevate taking a lot of damage, and HotSoggyDecimate turns around, tries to do a bit of poking there to Nasus. The charm will fly out there, but misses onto everyone. And some interesting jungle pressure there in the mid lane, but no one kills there. I have a funny feeling that Heavens missed that flash, though. Heavens
actually tried to counter flash into Ari and explode her with a burst of damage, knowing Nasus was coming to back her up. Flashed right into the charm channel, so very awkward exchange there.
Yeah, no, Wither coming out as well. Udyr trying to make a difference. Sooners here in the mid lane as well. Equalizer comes down, but Udyr's already dead. Now Nasus trying to get out of the way there, and Elevate's very low on health. Renekton's roamed down as well. They're following his top laner, and Sooner, he's trying here. Raiders coming through as well. This could be really bad news, but Immunity are going to back away here. HotSoggyDecimate able to retreat back to their own lanes, and really nice play there from Swiper, immediately following Rumble down to mid.
It's going to be the 12-minute Rod of Ages coming out for Swain here. Doing so well in the mid lane. A CS advantage, now an item advantage. Scary times for Ari.
Yeah, and we often look at Rod of Ages as an item that, it needs to charge out. What's the good par time for Rod of Ages? Well, 16 minutes is usually about fine. You're usually happy to have it there. 14 minutes is pretty standard. It's pretty good. 12 minutes is really good here for Heavens. He's going to be happy with that.
Absolutely. If you're looking at the OGN, where Monte Cristo always makes reference to the par times, 14 minutes is what he expects in Korean tier professional play. 12 minutes here, very impressive.
Yeah, and Swain has just had a very comfortable lane. Certainly the early levels are a little scary. Level 6 is always scary if you're up against an Ari in mid, but looks like Swiper here in the top lane going to try and do some damage to Rumble. And part of the problem here, Rumble's a really good laner. He can be a bully. He's excellent against melee champions especially, but unfortunately here, Renekton has just had that first blood's really caused Sooners aggression some problems here. And Hextreak, a Giant's Belt, it's almost impossible for this Rumble to fight up against Renekton.
And down bottom lane, Radiant picks up the Bloodthirst. It's a huge damage trade up top.
And Swiper coming in as well. Can't quite follow up, unfortunately. Did use Slice and Dice there, but Sooner just not winning any of these trades.
I mean, the Bloodthirst to pick up on Corki. It's just nice to see Corki back in the competitive scene. He was right up there, but for many months now he's been unpicked. With the mana tweaks, only the Phosphorus Bomb really draining that mana. A competitive tier pick once again.
And he did mention that Radiant loves his Corki. Pretty much when he first came out into the scene, all that time ago now, pretty much all he did was play Corki. And Corki was, to be fair, a lot stronger then, but it's a champion that he's most familiar with. It might very well be his favorite champion, although I think that honor goes to Vayne. And it's clearly here, as you can see, not only a good matchup for him here against Vayne, of course, he can't really pick Ezreal, he knows that, but a comfort pick for him as well. And it's showing here in the difference in bottom lane.
I mean, Immunity at this point are probably happy to keep the laning phase going just because they're being punished in every lane. 3.3k is the gold lead here.
Swiper going to get aggressive. They're going to all in there. Slice and Dice is forward there, and there's the kill. Could be in trouble, those HotSoggyDecimate coming around. They stuns him up in best. It's Renekton going to try and make it happen. There's a big level difference here as well, but the best end's going to come through here. Swiper, he wants to keep fighting here, but looks like people might be rotating around from mid lane. Noodles now in trouble, taking a lot of damage again. He's a level behind, but Elevate going to run Spirit Rush over the gap. He finds it there. The charm lands as well. Hextreak out of there, and a nice kill for Udyr.
And not able to rotate fast enough was Heavens. Looking for a trade kill pickup here on Ari, but I don't think he's going to get it.
Yeah, a nice dive there from Swiper. I mean, saw the level difference there. 3 levels ahead was Renekton with his ult still ticking as Udyr came by, but good play there from Sogga Noodles to wait for his teammate to stall out here, and they'll be happy with a couple of kills they picked up. A dive going to come out now. Wither going to come through as well. Heaven's going to look for the W. Flash there from Elevate, but the tidal wave's going to come in there from Zephyrus to defend it off, and really nice roam there from the bottom lane. In fact, kind of knew what was happening. Throw the charm out as well. Hits out onto Nasus, and no Acrobism available, but there's the flash. Exhaust actually. Equalize it down as well. Sooners now in the house. Decimate coming forward to pick up Nasus. It's committed so many people. There's the flash auto attack. And Decimate's going to keep running in here as well. Heavens could be in trouble there. There's the red buff slow. One more hit as well. Should be able to tumble forward. Needs vision though. Heavens though turns it around. Going to try and make it happen. Condemned out of the way. The Aquablizzard misses actually as a result. But they're still chasing through here. Swain regenerating as much as he can. Sooner now in there, and Rumble picks it up.
And the interesting there, pastry time. Decimate picked up the second red buff from Udyr, who needs that red buff to gank. Just for some lane pressure, would have been a bit more true damage to help last hitting with, as he's way behind in lane. What a happy times to find a turret dive and 2 trade kills there for HotSoggyDecimate to get them back in the game.
Yeah, and after all that really nice movement there for HotSoggyDecimate, I mean, this is very early grouping here. They've been roaming. They had 4 people roam mid to try and make something happen, but as you said, their timing worked out nicely, and they've actually evened themselves back up quite well here. It's about 1,500 gold or so between these two teams, edging a little closer to 2,000, but they've evened up the kill scores. They're actually ahead in turrets. They got the top turret there as well. So, despite kind of an awkward first 10 minutes, they've really evened it back up here.
And Sooner's shown so much map mobility. It's probably been his best strength. On Zed, for example, in a counter matchup against Shen, where he couldn't get kills in lane, so good at rotating mid, getting those ganks off. He does the same thing on Rumble here. That equalizer, a big proponent to the winning of the team fight.
Yeah, and it's not often that you see a top lane be so aggressive with his roaming. You know, that's normally the role you expect from mid, and certainly Elevate's been doing his fair share of that here. But, I mean, Suna is one of the reasons the HotSoggyDecimate, and as you said, he's the newest member of their team. Suna's been playing, when he's playing well, his team looks really, really good. And right here, he's doing exactly what he needs to get his team back in here. He didn't have the greatest laning phase. You can see Renekton actually significantly far ahead in CS here, but he's roaming for his team. HotSoggyDecimate have realized that if they let the laning phase continue as it is with the, you know, all the matchups kind of laid out standardly, that they're not going to win those fights. So they've grouped together early here, trying to make a difference, and they've actually caught quite well back up here.
The one thing you can say though, Pastry Time, what has that roam afforded? Apart from just the kills, oh, as we see, caught out here, Soggy Noodles.
Soggy Noodles with it, but he turns it around. Zephyrus going to ebb and flow as well. That's a little bit of speed as well there from Udyr. Going to come through in here as well. No, Decimate running up, Elevate in there as well. Finds the Spirit Rush, condemns over the wall, and Zara comes in there. But Equalizer beautifully placed there from Suna. Everybody forced a flash out of the way there as they're chasing out Alicia and Heavens back towards the bottom lane. I think they're after Raid here. Corki quite low on mana here. They may look for a tower dive. Blade of the Ruin King activated there as well. That's bad news for Rosie as he gets picked up. Damage coming through there. That's a kill onto Udyr. Zephyrus roaming through there as well. Suna very low. The heal not enough there, and Aquaprison a little late, and a 2-for-1 trade as the dust settles there. Immunity going to be happy with that. They may not be done, but looks like they don't want to be too hasty here.
A 2-for-1 trade is not good at the best of times, Pastry Time, but they committed all their resources to it. 5 members losing a team fight 5v4, and we see their Renekton pushing very, very aggressively in the top lane.
And the bad news was that was a 4v5. Renekton just happily hanging out, took out the top tower to even out the turret score. And I mean, HotSoggyDecimate, again, they've shown some early grouping here. They've had not the early game they would have desired here. Every lane is very far behind in CS. I mean, look at Swiper now. All of Suna's roaming, yes, it's helped the other lanes catch back up, but he's completely butchered his CS here. I mean, he's 70 CS behind. That's very, very rare at this level.
I think one thing you can say, though, is that I mean, Ahri was losing significantly in the mid lane. She's a snowball champion. She needs to get going. She's at least now even in CS. Rumble, however, is not a CS-intensive champion. One of the reasons why he was so popular in those 2v1 lanes was that he only really needs to access the Haunting guys and the Sorcerer's Shoes to have the Equalizer do massive damage. He has a very low item threshold to be relevant. Okay, to be a carry, he needs a lot more. But helping out Ahri, I can see what they're thinking here, and it's helped Vayne out as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, Vayne's still reasonably far behind in CS. Blade of the Ruin King finished up here for Decimate. That's good news there. Going to make the 1v1ing of the Corki much easier, although the 40 CS lead or so in the bottom lane probably going to cause a few problems here as Manamune is also already finished up for Corki. He's got that along with his Bloodthirster now, so going to be doing nice big damage there as they come through. Ahri in the mid picked up need to see large draw, so still going to go for that DFG, despite not really getting that snowball on. Swain, of course, now building up towards the Zombies. That's going to make Heavens even harder to kill in team fights.
I'm very interested to see the first interaction of Vayne versus Corki in almost a 1v1 situation, where Vayne tries to use the Blade of the Ruin King to use her Superior Dueling to take down Corki. I have a funny feeling Radio's just going to stay there, Phosphorus Bomb, and try and burst her down rather than run away.
Yeah, I mean, Corki at short range does a lot of damage. Not only is the Phosphorus Bomb there, but Gatling Gun as well. Shreds your armor, does damage as it ticks out there as well. So, I mean, it's not often that we say a champion can out 1v1 a Vayne, but a Vayne with a Blade of the Ruin King. But in this particular situation, that might actually be the case here for Radio.
I mean, look at his sheer AD right now, 250 AD. Of course, the Blade of the Ruin King, more of a utility, active, focused build, but over 120 AD, the advantage for Radio.
Yeah, you can see now in the mid lane, Immunity realized that their lanes have been very strong here. They can start pushing down towers now at 20.5 minutes. And I mean, this two-man team probably not going to be able to defend this here in the mid. Swiper going to get in. He's very tanky. He's got to be a little careful because his Sunfire keeps automatically drawing aggro. You can see Udyr very intelligently walking up to him to take a little bit of that burn damage, probably with the turtle stance on, just so that turret auto aggroes. But Immunity, they're going to be happy to camp through here. It looks like Rumble has left a lane there as well, so he's going to come through here. And if someone can make a difference, it seems like it might be Suna. But the gold lead is getting away from HotSoggyDecimate a little here. They need to keep making plays.
Now, I imagine they expect Suna down here, but will they get the charm engaged? Not quite.
Not quite. They're going to go for it anyway, though. Alicia a little too far forward. The damage coming out, though. And Ultimate actually popped there by Nasus, so maybe a way for it to run out and then re-engage when they can. They're at least getting some counter push done here in the mid lane, but the bottom lane's still in trouble as well. And it looks like HotSoggyDecimate, they went back to do the golems there for a little bit of extra CS. The bottom turret's very low here as well. Looks like we are going to have maybe some continued rotation. Zephyrus looks for the play. They can't quite find it, but there's a tidal wave instead. A great equalizer there is going to cut off Rosie, but damage coming through there as Decimate takes so much pain. He's in trouble. He dodges the Phosphorus Bomb, but it's not quite enough there, and Rosie actually picks up the kill there on Zyra. Now Raider actually continues to go in. Zephyrus in trouble. So much damage from this Corki. It's very bad news here. One more missile. Suda needs to block, and he does. He turns it around. Rumble overheats. He might get it. The barrier out there for Raider. He's sticking down from Ignite. Phosphorus Boss finds it. Raider picks him up, and Heavens cleans up Nami from the back.
And even with without the massive mobility there, so much damage coming out of that Corki. It's nice to see the return of the Moustache Man.
It really is, and again, one of Radia's favorite champions, Corki, so good in duels. I mean, we talk about Blade of the Ruined King Vayne, we talk about how good she can be 1v1. I think people have just forgotten how good Corki is in those spots.
The reveal pastry time, it's so strong.
So strong indeed, and Raider clearly very comfortable here. Even rocking his old favorite skin, the Earth Ladder Corki, as Alicia up in the top lane's pushing out now, and HotSoggyDecimate, you know, they've had a decent game. Obviously, a lot of the roaming that Suna was doing was helpful here, but they are slowly falling behind here. And the problem, as it almost always is against Immunity, is Raider. He's just so big right now. Stunning the mid lane going to happen. Heavens will take a bit of damage. Looks for the W, but can't quite find it there. Looks like everyone's just going to back away slowly there from the mid lane. Elevate, you know, he's getting towards that DFG. He might be able to pick off Raider, but I don't know, it could be too late at that point. He's got a Zeal now as well. He might even build the Trinity Force. When was the last time you saw T-Force?
It was a while ago, pastry time, and when it comes to item builds, I'm also wondering about this Udyr. He went for the Spirit of the Ancient Golem, a very fantastic choice. Has a Kindle Gem here. Is he going to go for a tanky aura like the Locket? Is he going to transition into more of a DPS or a tank role? I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably not going to build Shurelia's, unfortunately. As sweet as that item is on Udyr, he probably would want the Philo Stone instead. I would guess Locket from the Kindle Gem here, but I'm actually kind of surprised to not see Boots of Swiftness as well. That was a popular Udyr item when he started seeing a little bit more play. It looks like Dragon being contested here, of course. HotSoggyDecimate buying time for the rest of their team here, and Immunity, interestingly, backing off here. I guess don't realize not everybody's here. And
the power of the equalizer pastry time.
That's
with the equalizer
well.
being present, make sure that your positioning is down. Your team knows how to disengage from Dragon because it's so powerful.
It really is here. Immunity going to go for it though. Feel confident in their damage. Going to try and get off this Dragon. HotSoggyDecimate get a roll in. They're going to poke them off it if they can. And of course, you have to remember that they really need to equalize in the right spot here soon. They're going to get caught off Heavens. Goes forward directly. The tidal wave comes out. They're good Aqua Prison. Hits on the Radiant. They're the equalizer down as well. But Radiant's in there doing damage. Stranglethorns comes out in there as well. Decimated in a lot of trouble. Actually, he's going to take so much damage. Gets blown up by a big one as well by Corki. And Alicia still running forward. Flash with us forward. They want Elevate. They pick him up there with Grasping Roots. They're going to dive in there. And Heavens cleans up that kill there with his W. And Immunity there, 4 for 0. I think they even got Dragon in there. And oh my goodness, they want all the buffs. They're running straight to Baron.
Only the support out pastry time is going to be a free uncontested Baron. And this Corki is just wrecking HotSoggyDecimate. Far too strong as Radiant.
And this is really confident for Immunity. They don't have their smite up. I mean, as you said, everyone else is dead except for the support, so they're probably not afraid of Zephyr stealing it, but it takes a lot of guts at 25 minutes to realize that you're far enough ahead where you can take Baron at this point in the game. But they are going to pick it up there. Swain picks up the last hit, of course, without smite, and a big lead here for Immunity. 10k ahead now they are.
They're starting to hit item thresholds that are scary if you're a HotSoggyDecimate fan. Already the Aegis completed by Nasus. I imagine he's going to go back, finish that Runic Bulwark. That's going to help them against the Equalizer and Ari's damage. Ari, in fact, here, she's given up the chase for the potential DFG, gone for the Mirror Nomicon for a bit of early pressure, but doesn't have that big needlessly large rod item, even at 25 minutes.
Funny that you mentioned Morello Nomicon. There are actually 2 of those currently, and I think the items that Rosie just picked up here really indicate just how confident IMR in this spot. We've got Morello Nomicon finished up on Zyra. That was what she built her Cadence like a pick into, and an Oracle's picked up now as well, and the Ruby Sightstone there. So Immunity now, they've got their 3 outer turrets. Radiant just took out the last one in mid. They're going to be roaming through, putting the wards down, clearing out wards where they can, and HotSoggyDecimate, they've got to be very careful through their own jungle now.
Rosie as a support, one of the things about him is he doesn't run GP10 from Maroons. He always has that AP or AD as the support situation dictates. Loves to play aggressive. The Morello Nomicon on a champion who scales as well with AP as Zyra does. A very powerful pickup. She's sitting right now on 150 AP is that Zyra.
And that's a lot for a support Zyra. I guess one thing is down the bottom lane, the blue minions actually took out that turret, so HotSoggyDecimate get a little win back there from their minions as they do a bit of the heavy lifting there for them, but still a lot of ground to cover here for HotSoggyDecimate, and Immunity with their Baron buff are going to be wanting to fight as soon as they possibly can, and looks like we are going to start the siege right now in mid lane.
from siege terms, I mean, it's really only the Corki rockets that can lead to a siege, but we've seen Heavens aggressively flash a lot this fight. They're going to look for a never move, then a dive, pastry time.
Indeed they are. Phantom Net to finish up on Corki as well. Just wants a lot of damage quickly here. Doesn't even have the Infinity Edge to maybe combo with it, but it's pokey. So much damage being dealt to that turret as well. The Aqua Prison barely missing there out onto Corki. And Immunity, I mean, they've got the Baron here. They can dive if they want to. They can poke if they want to. The Baron buff at this point affording them so much here. Not to mention all the extra gold they have. So give them a nice big item advantage here as well. I don't think HSD can defend this tier 2 turret. They're probably going to look to just waste as much time as possible, try and time out that Baron buff, and I think at above all costs, they must defend their mid inhibitor.
Now they noticed that Vayne did back here, so they're going to get a lot of damage onto the inhibitor turret here.
Yeah, the other issue as well is that there's a lot of die potential here. So the Never Move going to hit HotSoggyDecimate, but Tidal Wave's going to come through. Actually just hit Swiper as Immunity very cleverly dispersed from that one and avoid that big AoE as it rolls through. I mean, part of the problem with Tidal Wave is it's a little slow as it rolls in there, and Zephyrus, I think, used predicting a dive, and unfortunately Immunity were able to back out. Now they can go back in on the turret, and really, apart from the Equalizer, they don't have too much to be afraid of here.
Yep, the turret dive without that disengage available. As long as Renekton and Nasus are tanking this turret, they have crazy, crazy dive potential.
We mentioned the front line here from Immunity being tanky between Renekton and Nasus. Swain as well, this one is also really, really tanky. He's got Rod of Aegis, he's got his Zhonya's, he's even got a Negatron cloak in there as well, likely building up towards that Abyssal Scepter. So, I mean, you can see them, all three of them been standing up near the tower with the minion wave, happily taking it, doing the damage where they can, and just being a meat shield for Rady so he can get in and auto-attack the turret. And at this point, with Manamune and Phantom Nets of Bloodthirst, he's doing a lot of damage to these structures. I mean, Baron buff still got a little while left here. Good wave queue here actually coming out from HotSoggyDecimate, but damage, that's very bad news for HotSoggy Noodles. He takes a little bit too much there. Sooner actually Zhonya's, but that's going to be bad. They're going to dump on top of him, then Rumble's going to go down there in that one, and this inhibitor should go down there as Elevate gets popped up as well. He was snagged off by Grasping Roots. And I mean, this game, exactly where Immunity wanted.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is the Ahri is just so far behind. I mean, yesterday, 2 days ago now, I guess, sorry, with the Annie pick from HotSoggyDecimate, we saw the Death Cap, the Void stuff, the really intensive AP burst build. Now you see the kind of emergency Morellonomicon with 0-3-2 score. You can see really struggling here is the Ahri.
Yeah, and Elevate, I mean, he is known for being aggressive, and one of the problems is if you don't get things going, if you can't snowball your lane or be aggressive with your roam, and Ahri's definitely a champion that's good at that, you do fall behind a little. And the plan here, I can tell you, would have been to try and kill Rady with Ahri as an assassin. She's very good at that as Heaven's here. Going to go into HotSoggyDecimate. Swiper actually stuns Zephyrus off the back there as the rest of the team take out the inhibitor turret here. The second inhibitor going to fall. The Equalizer going to get used, but that inhibitor's already down. They want to fight here. Heavens gets popped by Aquas, but HotSoggyDecimate completely destroyed here by all that damage as Rady adds another kill to his score. 6-1-8 now as they're going to continue on this fight. Tidal Wave's going to come through and knock up quite a few of them. It looks like Immunity is going to look to re-engage here. And honestly, at this point, they don't even have to. They're happy to walk out from the bottom lane. They've got the two inhibitors there, one in mid, one in bot. Top lane is pushing in as well. And you know at this point, with Baron buff being maybe a minute or two away, they're just going to happily push through that top there and probably take a fairly uncontested Baron.
The sign of a good team there, Pagetron. They've taken the big objectives from those map positions. They've taken mid inhibitor, they've taken bot inhibitor. They weren't really in a position to dive their double turrets. That's probably a little bit of an overreach by Immunity. Just go back and shop. You've got everything you came for.
Yeah, now all they really have to do is wait for Baron and just slowly push down that top lane. Both mid and bot going to do plenty of work here for Immunity as they've already taken out those inhibitors. A bit of shopping done by both teams as well. You can see Nasus very, very tanky right now. Runic Bulwark, Spirit of the Ancient Golem, and a Warden's Mail finished up here. Rady going back as well. I don't quite know where his tier stacks are up to on that Manamune, but I imagine Muramana is fairly close to being on the way here. He is going to go back as well. Now picks up a last Whisper for a trio of damage items, and if he wasn't doing damage before, he's certainly doing plenty now with all that percentage armor pen.
460 mana, so still quite a ways away. It was a very, very late tier.
Elevate actually going to go deep, picking them coming through as well. Good stun into the wall there from Decimate, and they pick up a kill.
The start of something, pastry time. It's not. We won't read into it too much here. There's no objectives for them to pick down, but a kill's a kill.
It is, and you know, they'll be happy to pick up a little bit of extra gold there. Probably delay some of the pressure from Immunity a little bit here, although you can see Suna already having to go and defend the tier 2 turret. That lane's already been pushed in by, I think, Zyra, as the rest of Immunity were just hanging out in mid, trying to get some pressure happening, trying to show themselves on the map. Soggynoodle should not be doing his wolves. That's not a safe spot to be. He's going to try and bear out here, but Swiper is going to find him. That would have been a very interesting slice and dice, actually. He could have sliced onto the wolves and then diced forward onto Udi, which would have been very unfortunate positioning for those neutral creeps.
No highlight reel play this time.
Would have been sweet, but not going to happen. Instead, I mean, you're just going to take the safe, very Very steady approach here. I mean, there's no rush for them in this game. They're already plenty far ahead. Aquabas are going to miss in there. Stock and Noodle's going to try and make it happen. The turret's taking quite a bit of damage. The tidal wave there. Raider getting jumped on as well. Stranglethorn's there for Zara to try and get it out there. Asuna pops his Zonia's, and everybody's just kind of walk away here. Swiper, though, so tanky. Just retreats with our Randulans on as he pops that one off there. Grasping Wits will actually hit onto Decimate as he gets withered up in there as well. And every time HotSoggyDecimate try and come through, there's so much good disengage here. Elevate may be looking like he wants to make a play, but Immunity with the Wither, with the Stranglethorns, with the very tanky front line, just able to walk away there.
To give the crowd an idea, every third rocket here, every third big one from Radiant is exploding in AoE for 480 magic damage. So strong as this Corki. Even as a one-man poke team, when it comes to the rest of his team, super powerful.
And this is a very confident Baron here from Immunity. So, I mean, Brady had no health now. He has plenty of health with that Bloodthirster regen. Rosie takes a big take of damage, but so aggressive as Corki tries to pop in with Valkyrie. And you can just tell that Immunity, they know this game is won. All they have to do is close it out. And the last thing they want is a repeat of their game 2 from yesterday. They're going to want to try and take this one as quickly as possible.
It will take multiple team fights without losing any objectives for HotSoggyDecimate to come in, but we've seen them come back from worse. I don't know if they can do it here.
Yeah, especially against a team like Immunity, who are very good at closing out games when they need to. Decimate takes so much damage there from Heavens as Rosie picks up the turret kill there. The last inhibitor is going to fall here, and it's going to be not a whole lot left. They are running out of structures quickly here, but as long as they protect the Nexus, it's okay. Heavens, so tanky, they're regenerating so much health with Ravenous Flock on Sara. A little low there. Equalizer coming through to try and cut them off. The Stranglethorns, they're forcing them back towards their fountain. And Immunity just going to do so much damage to these Nexus turrets. The first one falls here. The second one is probably going to follow. And I think we have our game 1 winners here.
They're heading on to the Nexus here, pastry time.
With the last stand from HotSoggyDecimate, they're going to try and make it happen. Elevate to the back, trying to do what he can there, but it's just too much here. Immunity too far ahead at this point. Radier dominating right now. He finishes the game 7-1-8. And a very nicely played game 1 there from Immunity.
And that was the Radier that we talk up, the Radier we talk about as a star player. This tournament, ironically, he's kind of been a bit muted. He's never played poorly, but he's just kind of been a side factor in Immunity's wins. Today, once again, a return to the spotlight, and what better a stage for Radier.
Yeah, I mean, bringing out his trademark champion, something that he's played time and time again there in that Corki, and just having a fantastic game there. I mean, it's, I think the way the draft worked out, they expected that Vayne in a Radier, he probably thought about, say, you know what, my old favorite Corki is probably good here, and very, very good there in that lane. It's just not a whole lot Decimate could do. I mean, all the lanes there looked very good for Immunity, clearly out-drafting HotSoggyDecimate there a little bit. They're going to have to go back to the drawing board, see what else they can get done here, and we'll see what happens in game 2, of course. So before we get there, we mentioned the qualifiers earlier on. We did cast the online qualifiers here. They lasted for 2 weeks as we went from 603 teams to the 2 teams you see before you now. We do have a couple of clips here prepared for you. We're going to watch and see how these 2 teams got here to the tournament as we go through a couple of highlights for HSD and Immunity.